It's now time to move to our first panel. We've talked quite a bit about bottlenecks in airport operations, particularly over the last summer, but more generally than that. We're now going to look at those bottlenecks and how we can actually work to resolve them. To lead this panel, we have our EASA Flight Standards Director, Jesper Rasmussen. Jesper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will not spend much time before inviting the panel of distinguished representatives from all parts of aviation connected and joining in airports. Please come to the stage. And you can see where you are supposed to sit. So welcome to this panel about the overall challenges we see at airports, how we can work together, because as has been said several times, there are many actors meeting at the junction of airports. I will not go further into the introduction of the panel because you can see all the names on the screen. We have representatives, Javier Marin, from the airports, being not only president of the ACI, but also managing director of AENA, so you wear at least two hats. We have Tom Kelly from Ryanair, flying all over Europe, I should say. We have Libor Kurzweil, as just mentioned by the previous speaker, to take a hand of the concrete safety work in Prague Airport. We have Jerzy Perilska, I hope I pronounced it correctly, taking care of the ground handling and also being part of the global group of Menzies, so you also can be said to have several hats. And last but not least, we have Piotr Samson as a Director General from the Polish National Aviation Authority. We will split our discussion in three different themes. The first being the spotlight on solutions to deal with the rapid ramp-up we've seen this summer, and how also to address the future challenges. And just to give you a teaser of the coming two themes, we will not touch them yet. It is how we work together to optimize airport operations. That's theme number 2. And the last theme will be smart safety management solutions. So while we are discussing, please go into the Slido, go for panel 1, ask your questions. We have a secretariat which will compile questions, and the most important ones we can take up for discussion when we, after the discussion of the three themes, will focus on the main issues raised by you. So let's get started with the first theme, spotlight on solutions to deal with the ramp-up we've just seen and still seeing, and how to address future challenges. Tom, I think I will start with you, looking a bit back. You are running operations with 200 plus airports in Europe. How do you? Which safety issues have you identified, and what are the implications during this ramp up? How have you dealt with it?
So we have roughly around 200, I think it's 237 airports, the last count we did anyway, that we're operating into or from. And we've got, I suppose, during the ramp up this year, there was really twofold items that we had. So I think we did a lot of additional training, like additional to the regulatory requirements as part of the ramp up. We did a lot of, it could be extra sim sessions, line training sectors with crew. It could be e-learning. It could be webinars. And we focused on things like, the human factor, which is maybe something we wouldn't have had to do in the past. So all that additional training became part of this very comprehensive return to normal operations, is what we called it, or RNO. It became quickly known in Ryanair because everyone in aviation loves acronyms, almost like a hobby. So we did that, and that was a huge part of us and our success coming back. We then had, in addition to that, I think what helped us not cancel flights or have mass cancellation like many other carriers this summer was because we kept flying throughout the pandemic. We kept our aircraft in check, and we kept all our staff and tried to make sure that they were still current right through the pandemic as best as possible. And that allowed us to start back up much more quickly than I think most other carriers.
So you were kind of hibernating during COVID?
I don't know, hibernating. We were flying as much as were allowed to fly. Or as much as the market would allow it. We did as much as we could to, obviously there was government-imposed lockdowns and groundings of fleets, but every chance that we got to restart back up, we did it. It was at great expense. We had some considerable losses during that period, but we felt the benefits of it this summer, where I think a lot of other people were caught out more so than us.
Turning to the ground side, Libor, we heard your CIO just explaining the overall safety work in the airport. But how did you handle the ramp up? Did you have staff at all? How could you manage it? Mobilize resources, get in touch again with partners and so on?
Yes, it is actually an interesting story, and let's go back in time to the summer of 2019. That days, one IT guy approached me, and he said, "Hey, Libor, I had got a nice software tool, a new piece of software, and we are seeking a department where to test it and where to evaluate. And because I'm interested naturally in everything new, and I want my department to be on the leading edge of innovations." I said yes, we would test, and so we did. Thanks to that moment, we entered the pandemic, prepared well for the remote work, and managed to run the SMS even in the pandemic period smoothly. The name of the tool was Microsoft Teams. So later in the pandemic, we immediately created the workspaces for both local runway safety team and apron safety team, and managed the teams active for all the period. It was also a chance to open the old issues for discussion, issues that were unable to discuss during the full traffic. So it was a good chance for both teams to get back into the old topics. And we met online every month, and it was a normal frequency for us. So this was very good, and thanks to that we worked well. Now we met in person, obviously, but we still use Microsoft Teams for sharing the documents, for safety reports, the discussions, new things, and so on. In the pandemic, we had to focus on human factors mostly because I'm saying that people, especially on the ramp and in the aircraft, worked with so-called dangerous minds in their heads. Dangerous minds about their own health, health of the families, perspectives of their jobs, and maybe perspectives of the entire aviation ecosystems. So it was important for them at that moment, and naturally the focus on safety or adherence to the procedures was just number two for them at the moment. So we tried to make their life a little bit simpler by simplification of procedures or simplification of infrastructure, and I have some examples for you. But you wanted some lessons learned or best practices. I've got two maybe for you. The first one is that every problem can be seen as an opportunity. And in our case, we use this opportunity as follows. First, a couple of examples. This is a natural opportunity to build anything at the airport, build new infrastructure or repair. That is why we built a completely new taxiway and a lot of new aircraft stands. A great project, successfully completed. The second one is the simplification of the procedures, because the chief of operations, Martin, he is also with us in the room, did a great job for safety, because he simplified some procedures and removed some exceptions that were previously needed to make the capacity. Another example is the compliance, because our compliance manager, Tamara, welcome Tamara also, finally caught up the pace of the new regulations coming continuously from EASA. Another nice example is from HR, because our HR managed to educate all the company about the new things in IT world, the Office 365 and all those cloud services, and thanks to that we are now able to work with them efficiently, and it is well received by the employees. The last example is the best one for me. It is from IT department. They came to us and said, hey, we have got some capacity to develop something, and they came then with absolutely great navigation system for airside vehicles. Now 60 vehicles are equipped with such a system. They have got a map with the airport and all the live traffic, warnings against the runway incursions and many other functions. And this was done for the fraction of cost of the commercial solution. So this is a great project, and the example how to use the pandemic. Well, and the last thing is obviously the safety performance, because I can clearly say that despite all the negative things that happened over the 3 years, 2020 the pandemic, 2021 the first ramp up, and 2022 the massive lack of staff, I did not see any significant increase in the number of incidents, and the performance of safety was on the same level as before. And it says to me that we can rely on the people, because this is thanks to the people. We see people many times in a negative way, as a source of problems, source of errors, incidents and so on. But in this case, the human factor profiled yourself as a strong thing and strong pillar of aviation safety.
Thank you. May I turn to you, Irji, because now we have heard two statements or two examples where the operator, Ryanair, the airport, kept their operations running, although it was using remote tools and so on. We have read in the media, and we know about stories from the ground handlers where you have, in general, many have had to shed off the staff to keep control of the cost, and then the arrow was pointing quite much to the ground handling as the bottleneck. How did you experience that during the ramp up, and what did you do to mitigate the problems and to ensure safety?
Yeah, so actually connecting my speech with what was said by Lubor, it was really interesting story. I'm really great to hear that Libor was prepared. But back actually to March 2020 when the COVID hit, we were not prepared at all. We were actually quite surprised, we were shocked. And we actually didn't know how to address on one side. On the other side, Menzies was a London Stock Exchange listed company. So as such, we were under huge pressure of our shareholder, of course, to respond promptly and to respond properly. So that was our starting position, and we knew, actually we believed that that was the whole pandemic will be just a temporary thing. We just didn't know when it will finish and how actually the traffic will be back comparing to 2019 figures. But what we knew and what we were at any moment convinced was that we need to do all what we can to keep our key staff, right? Especially those that were the most skilled ones. But how to do it once you are under pressure of financials, because we didn't have airlines. Airlines stopped flying. We didn't have any revenues, and of course, huge costs in our P&L. So we were thinking how to keep the staff, and finally we developed one solution that I wanted to share with you, because it's a bit unique. We actually established completely new business line. We actually set up 2 call centers and allocate our staff, mainly from Czechia, to work in this business and actually support that kind of activities with the partners specializing in this business. And we even through this activity supported the battle against COVID, because we basically did an activity that was about when someone was infected. We actually called him, reported the contact, got the symptoms in the system, and so on. And that was actually something that helped us a lot, because it enabled our staff to keep their salaries, to keep their working habits, to keep their socializing in work. That was one part. But the second part, which was actually quite critical, especially for the summer, because our key staff recognized and appreciate our that step, that we did something for them, and actually we saved their jobs. So that was one element. The second element, and I'm actually quite often quite critic towards our government, but in this particular case, I would like to appreciate Czech government with the state support scheme, because that was another key element that enabled us to keep the key staff. And basically that enabled us to be much more prepared for the ramp up, that we didn't know exactly when it will happen. We were just absolutely sure that it will happen sometime, right? So that was how to actually avoid reduction of the key staff. There was also an element how to attract new staff, especially for the season. We started very early. We started already in January this year. That was also a decisive factor. And also we actually involved our staff to help us to attract new colleagues to come and work. So finally, we were not I would say, lack of staff, but I wanted to address one point, which is actually regarding the safety that we saw in the industry, especially during this summer. And that was that we spotted some signs like that sometimes we felt that safety is actually not as important as it should be, and it's not perceived as priority number one. I just remember some posts in the social media that, for example, a pilot was loading the aircraft, and to be honest, when I fly to my vacation with my kids, I don't want to be on the plane that is actually loaded by its pilot, right? If there is a shortage of staff, it should be CEO of handling company who should actually load the aircraft, not the pilot. So we have spotted those kind of signs that indicate and ring our bell to actually improve the safety awareness, and we did a move which was actually opposite to the market, because market was rushing to manage all the delays and so on, and we stepped down and communicated to the people, to our staff, and say, calm down. We will not rush. We completely de-stressed our staff and say, if there is a delay, there is no that a big problem, because the first priority is actually safety, right? And I think that was absolutely a critical point, because that was, among other activities, other elements, one of the key points that this season, which was absolutely challenging, that was really the most challenging season in the history, that we managed it together with airport and our airlines, I would say, in a good mode, meaning that the safety was actually at every second at the first place.
Thank you. So just from what you're saying, with the experience from Prague Airport, the pictures we have seen in the media of mountains of suitcases, thousands of people not being able to pass through the airport, that has not been the case in Prague Airport.
It was not the case in Prague Airport. Of course, we faced some difficulties. I cannot say that everything was completely smooth, but comparing to other airports, mainly the bigger airports, I could hopefully say, Libor could and other guys could confirm that it was actually much better.
Okay. Turning to the authority perspective, Piotr, I mean, you have been supervising or monitoring first the down period during the COVID, implementing some of the measures to handle that particular period. And then suddenly we saw the ramp up in spring and over summer, with also some actors which could have also some financial issues. What did you do as an authority to ensure that the whole thing actually also from your perspective was handled in a safe way?
Okay, let me start from the very beginning. When the crisis became the COVID, the major challenge was to how to survive the crisis, because we knew at that time that sooner or later it would be over. And the first, actually, and that was the request from the government, is to assess the financial impact. So what we have done as an authority, because we were very well placed, we had the data from all the players, the airlines, the airports, ANSPs, the whole value chain, how much money will be missing in the system. We collected this data, and that was the first challenge. And we came out with this certain amount, and the result that we need such amount of money. Then the question was how to provide this money. Not everyone was in such a comfortable position as our colleagues from Ryanair and Wizz Air, when before the crisis they have a very significant cushion of money, liquidity, and also certain flexibility. In terms of the system, especially when you look at the airports, when you look at the ANSPs, they were extremely vulnerable to the system. The idea was that the money should be brought first to the airlines, and then the airlines will bring the money further into the value chain. At the end of the day, I was not sure whether that was the best option and whether that was the perfect solution, but basically that was the logic. Still, as the authority, we had some kind of the control and the suggestion what and how to support other players, ANSPs, airports, and ground handling. That was because that was one of the biggest challenge. So we more or less survived the first hit, the year 20, and then year 21, the traffic went down. Then when we approached 22, we already knew there were some signals that the traffic will go up. We didn't know exactly what will be the pace, but we were very closely working with the Eurocontrol. We look at the data, we look at the statistics. So we, in a way, were forecasting that will go up. And then we had a different approach. At that moment, we look at the resources. whether we have enough resources to cope with the traffic. And then what appeared is that, in fact, the major problem was a certain unbalance of resources. Then I would like to mention that, especially in case of the airlines, airports, not every state in terms of the airports is as well organized as our colleagues from Spain. When they've got AENA, they can balance in a way the resources, they've got the control. In different states in Europe, some small airports, especially at the very beginning of the crisis, were very vulnerable because there were some limits in terms of taking the debt. The big airports, much better. So actually, what we did, we created a few meetings when we gathered the whole value chain, the airlines, the airports, the handling agents, and we more or less assessed the situation before the summer. Finally, we were not as bad. There were delays, but we avoided situations like at the big airports, Schiphol, Frankfurt, and London. And I think the recipe was that we planned, we were aware what may happen and what steps should be taken. In the very practical terms, the whole, I would say, the recipe was to balance the resources. We convinced some of the airports and the ground handling to switch also the security people, because security was a major bottleneck. So we also work with the Ministry of Internal Affairs to be able to switch some of the resources between the airports. So I think that's what we have done, and that was the main challenge. Thank you.
Javier, AENA is operating not only one, but a network of airports. You may recognize some of the stories from the colleagues here, but you may also have seen a pattern. And I would like to ask you, what has AENA done to mitigate the problems? And perhaps you can also share with us a bit, looking into the future, what the ramp up and the COVID has taught us as lessons.
Thank you. Let me start by thanking EASA for inviting me to be here today. I think it's very important to have these kind of conferences, especially at this moment. No? We have many things to share and many challenges to face in the future. No? Well, I think the airport industry has the challenge in the short term to recover the activity. That's the first. Many airports in Europe has not recovered the volumes of passengers they had before, and they have not recovered the capacity of the airports and even the quality they had before. No? That's not easy in this situation, geopolitical and inflationary scenario, and that is the main challenge in the short term. In the case of AENA, we suffered the same. Our airports didn't have activity the first weeks of the restrictions. So at the beginning, we followed a similar plan to other colleagues, just to reduce cost, to reduce activity, to reduce services. But always we were thinking in the way we were going to ramp up the activity again, because we knew that once the restrictions were lifted, immediately people came back to travel. No? So we were coordinated with airlines, we were coordinated with ground handlers, we were coordinating with the companies that provide services, just to be sure that in case we had to open the terminals or to increase the services, we were ready for that. We are in a good situation. In the second half of the year, we have recovered more than 95% of the traffic as an average at national level, but at those airports located in touristic destinations, we are having more than 100% of the traffic we had in 2019. Of course, the airports more exposed to long-haul routes. Madrid, for example, are recovering a little bit slowly, but for example, Madrid has recovered 93% of the traffic at this moment. We'll finish the year with 240 million passengers in our airports, and I would say that now we have recovered the activity we had before, because on those airports that where we haven't recovered yet 100%, as Madrid, we have needed to put 100% of the capacity in place because the recovery has been at peak times, so we need to have that. So the short term, recovery of that, and some of our colleagues are still having problems to recover activity. In the long term, I think, AENA and the different colleagues have the same challenges. No, I would start by saying sustainability. I think sustainability is one of the, we have gone out without the same activity we had in 2019, but we have to be more sustainable. I think the path to follow is Fit for 55. We expect to have the Fit for 55 approved soon with some adjustment, and the industry is committed with Fit for 55 to reach the goal of being net zero in 2050. In our case, in AENA, our board has approved a climate action plan, which with the aim of being neutral, carbon neutral in 2026 and net zero by 2040. That is with a lot of measures to reach that goal. Another challenge which I consider is very important, especially when we look backward to the last months and the recovery, is not social and environmental sustainability, but social sustainability. We have seen that we have had problems with staff. Some of the problems that some of our colleagues are having is because there is a shortage of staff. The industry is not as attractive as it used to be before the pandemic. So people do not want to work at some activities, ground handling, other activities, security checkpoints, in the same conditions they were working before. So that my view is that we have learned that, and we must put the issue of the social sustainability on the top of the table as a priority to assure that we are not only environmental sustainable, but also social sustainable. Another challenge, I would say, is capacity. European capacity at our airports, I think, is a challenge. I think there are limitations of capacity nowadays, and there are limitations to expand our airports. There are political restrictions, there are environmental restrictions, there are social restrictions. So I think if we don't look carefully the question of capacity, we'll have a problem, not a problem of business of the airport operator or business of the airlines. We can have a problem of connectivity of the European citizens. So, of course, the financial part of the capacity is also an issue. Airport operators have gone out from this crisis in a financial weaker position, and also we have to work in the short term by keeping our charges low in order to help the recovery, but we must devote financial resources to increase capacity. In that sense, the slot regulation that now is being updated, being analyzed to be updated, is key for the industry. I mean, we have a regulation now in place in Europe that is very, very old. I think does not respond to the real challenges of the industry, of the situation of the airports, of the airlines. So the slot regulation will be key in the future of the use of the limited capacity in Europe. I would highlight innovation and digitalization is also important for the industry in terms of increasing safety, increasing the efficiency, and as a consequence, we can reduce cost, and also it's important to enhance the passenger experience at our airports. And finally, I would mention a challenge that for me is also a lesson I think I have learned after the crisis, is coordination. Airport ecosystem is a complex ecosystem, and we normally coordinate, but we have seen that when we are in a non-normal situation, as we have had in this ramp-up recovery, we need to improve our recovery, our coordination procedures, not only at operational level, but also at institutional level. We have learned how important has been to coordinate with EASA. They have done a very, very good job over the pandemic, trying to coordinate with ECDC, with European Commission, with the national authorities. So we have to learn, but we have to continue this coordination because it will be key in the future of our sector.
Thank you very much, and you have already given the key word to the second theme about coordination and cooperation. We will come back to that in a second. And later in the conference, we will both touch upon innovation and we will touch upon the climate change. So we get a chance to elaborate more on these important challenges. But before moving on, I will just give the chance to the other panelists. Could you mention just one lesson learned which you will take with you when you meet the next crisis ahead? And this is going to be a short format because time is about to be up for this theme. So anybody want to?
I think we did our management of change system that we would have, our process that we would have in our within the airline, within our organization. We found that we were kind of daily during COVID testing it. Every day it was stress test because something would change that we'd all have to, that would be so different to the normal day to day, and we would be forced to look at that from top to bottom in the organization. Quite quickly we'd have to respond. And we found that by going through that process all through COVID, that we have become, certainly for our organization, I'm not sure if it's the same for many others, but it probably is, that we are very, very confident in the system now, that like it is embedded within the organization. So that has been, I guess, one positive to take from a very negative situation, which was the pandemic, you know, for sure.
All right, anybody else want to highlight one point you take with you? Yes, Libor?
Yeah, aviation withstands any crisis, and it is very strong in its foundations.
Okay, that was nice and short. Thank you.
My lesson learned is always to be proactive. Don't wait and think that someone else will do that for you, will be sorted out. Like old saying in aviation, plan for the worst, but expect the best. So that's the lesson learned.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one for me, my key lesson is how we treat the people. Actually, I believe that we should really treat the people as a key asset in the company. And if we are treating them as a family, then we can actually survive any crisis that will come sooner or later.
Thank you very much. And now to the second theme, but before starting that, please, if you have questions or comments related to what we have discussed until now, please fire away on the Slido, because the coming two themes will be so interesting as well. So you will probably have a risk of forgotten your first question. So please fire away now, and we move now to theme number 2, which is working together to optimize airport operations. And I think I'll start with you, Piotr. As an authority, you oversee the individual domains, the operators of the individual domains, but you also have a certain obligation or push to ensure that they work together because that is best for safety. We all know that. So what have you concretely done, and what are you doing in the Polish National Authority?
That's what I said, actually. The last lesson learned is, be proactive. So I give the example of the security agents. We expected that may be we were also afraid of the baggage handlers, but we had some indication before the summer that that would be the biggest bottlenecks. We heard some suggestions from the handling companies, and what we did, we immediately organized a kind of a crisis cell, how to solve this problem. We look from different perspectives. One of the elements, as I said, was sharing the resources, or moving the resources from one airport to the other. On top of that, you have to take also into consideration that in case of Poland, we are the frontline country. So apart from being away from the crisis, from the virus, we also entered another crisis, the war in Ukraine, which made our situation even more complicated. And it made it even more complicated with respect to some of the airports. So we had to take everything into and together. We also, some of the airports, which typically are the civil airports, We now have the military operations, but generally we created, as I said, a kind of a crisis cell. First of all, we talk in our community, the aviation community, with the airports and the handling agents. Then we reach out for other ministers, because in case of the security, as you probably know, there's a big influence of the Minister of Interior. In our case, also there was a need for a certain support, or we considered certain support from the military with this airport. But the main thing was the creating a kind of the platform for the communication, facilitate communication. We also had this ability because we had a lot of data, statistical data, as I mentioned. So it was easy for us also to, to convince the politicians to make some kind of the decisions. It was difficult to change the law because we were also considering this, that in some of the crisis situations, especially with respect to the security, maybe there was a need for certain modification, but in terms of the rule-making activities and the things, the legal aspects, it was difficult. So there was a mix of the things. But as I said, the basic for it was the facilitation of the communication among the whole spectrum, the value chain of the aviations, I would say, inside our family, but then talk on behalf of our family with other actors.
Okay. Very interesting. Moving on to the ground handling perspective, and now you are not regulated by authorities yet, it's to come. You may have already today and during COVID relations with the national authority, but at least you have relations with the airline operators and the airports. So how do you work together to optimize your airport operations with your partners?
In fact, thank you for this subject, because I think that cooperation with state, airport, civil aviation authority, airlines is absolutely key. We could be the best company in the world, but without a proper and really working cooperation, we cannot achieve much, especially when it comes to safety. I really do believe that safety is the area when we can cooperate, not only with those authorities, but even with our competitors, right? So let me use this opportunity and also thank Czech Aviation Authority, not only for their proactive approach, which we do appreciate, but specifically for the managing of the process of the verification of the staff. I mean the background checks, because I do not know how they do it, but they do it in a reasonable time. And as I'm part of Menzies Aviation, which is present at many airports in Europe, I can compare that it's much faster here in Czech Republic than in other countries. And I think, and that's why I'm saying it, that was one of the key factors that actually supported the success of the summer season this year. So the result that we talk about is also thanks to Czech Aviation Authority. Coming to other partners, of course, key is airlines. We really like when they are predictable, that they fly on time, which is most of the case for example, Ryanair. Of course, the exchange of the information on daily basis is important, and I remember that before the challenging summer season, there were a couple of meetings at different kind of level with the airport, with other authorities, and we discuss how to manage it, how to introduce different kinds of activities, different kind of measures that improved the way passengers actually go smoothly through the airport, and even address some common communication. I'm really glad that we haven't faced a situation as in other countries, that when there was a problem, then there was a fight between who was actually responsible for that particular disruption and so on. So that was not the case. And I really do believe that the cooperation is absolutely critical. I think it's at a good level, especially for the reason that there is a will. And if there is a will on those parties, in all the stakeholders, then there is always a way to overcome. There is a lot of room to improve. There is a lot of projects to be addressed, but if there will be a will, then I'm sure that there will be a way to address the challenges that are ahead of us.
Thank you very much. Javier, EASA has over time selected ground handlers through tendering or concessions and so on. And I understand that you're also in the process of doing it now. What have you learned from the past in terms of managing this relationship with KPIs and so on? What has worked? What is working? And what have you learned in terms of making it more manageable and at the same time simple?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Ground handling is very, very important for the performance of the airport. I mean, it's in terms of safety first, but also in terms of punctuality, in terms of quality of the service, in terms of passenger experience. And at the end of the day, it's part of the competitiveness of the airport. So the airport operator has to ensure that the performance is the right one. So the regulation that is in place at this moment is the European directive, which regulates some points, but very, very general points. So we regulate in some way the activity at our airports. We regulate, and we regulate that by creating a framework with KPIs, with maximum prices, and by defining the number of licenses we award always according to the European regulation. There is a minimum of licenses. So first of all, we intend to put in the market the number of licenses that creates a right balance between liberalization, competition, quality, safety, and now even more social sustainability. So is what we do. We define that, and we define the KPIs for each of the airports, and we launch a tender to select the ground handlers that are going to be able to have the license to operate at our airports for the next 7 years. Now we are in the process. We consider that the policy we have been following before the pandemic was the right one, because I think one of the key points to have been successful in the recovery of is the definition of the handling we have, because they have been working very well, and in fact we haven't had problems with the ground handlers. So what we have done in the new process that we are conducting now is to improve some KPIs to adapt to the new situation. We have improved sustainability aspects. For example, now we demand a progressive renewal of sustainable vehicles, aspects like that. And we have conducted 2 consultation processes with airlines, with the ground handlers, just to refine the tender. And we have already received the proposals just 2 weeks ago. We are going to award 41 licenses for the 46 airports. Some of the airports, the small airports, are in a block, just one handler for a group of airports. For example, in Madrid, we will award 3 licenses, and at the smaller, we only 1 license there. And we have received 169 proposals for all, coming from 15 ground handlers, international ground handlers. We will award the licenses in the first quarter of the year. And I think we'll improve those points that due to the new state of the art have to be updated. But we consider that the level of liberalization we have in Spain and the KPIs we ask for a right balance between what we want and what the airlines are willing to pay and can afford to pay, no? Because at the end of the day, the customer of the ground handler is the airline, no?
And so by this tendering, we know from other parts of society, in construction and in IT supplies, that when you sign a contract at the end, that's almost the same as signing a declaration of war, and then the litigation starts and so on. How do you ensure that there is a good, constructive collaboration on sharing safety evidence, that you are not fighting each other, but you're working together?
I would say we haven't had problems of that. I mean, those ground handlers that work at the Spanish airports know the rules of the game. So even we have several airlines that are having the handling with a subsidiary company, for example, Ryanair. They also have to work under the framework established by AENA, of course, a different framework of the one we impose to those that have to provide services to other airlines, because they don't need to have the same equipment of Aviapartner or Menzies, because they are not going to provide services to other aircrafts different of the one they had. But they work under that framework, and of course, we also have the national authority, the National Safety Agency, that also intervene in supervising the activity at our airports, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. Turning to Ryanair, Tom, as an operator, as we discussed before, you are serving 237, was it, airports in Europe. You're to a certain degree also doing self-handling. Nevertheless, you will either, if you outsource or you self-handle, you will have to cooperate with the partners on safety issues. How do you handle that?
So I suppose the first question there, I suppose self-handling. We do self-handling in just shy of 40 airports, Dublin, Stansted, which are our two biggest based operations, and then all of Javier's airports, as well as a couple of airports out in Poland. So we have quite a mix, but just close to a third of Ryanair flights, about 30%, just shy of 30% of Ryanair flights are self-handled. We're not a handling agent, we are an airline. So I don't think self-handling is this utopia for everybody to run towards. It can be very expensive, especially if you don't have high volumes. It can be a lot to manage as well. There is professionals in the field, such as some of the agencies out there. However, it is very good operationally. It can be if you know what you're doing operationally, and you're able to manage it. You have the expertise to do so, and you're able to do that capital investment in the equipment and the people. So that's what we do with self-handling. I don't think it's the answer to all of our problems, but it is definitely something good to fall back on. In addition to that, I suppose throughout the network, how we keep a standardization throughout the network. It's just procedure. We really just try to make sure that we have a standardized approach across the network. When you're managing so many airports and so many flights, we do close to 3,100 flights per day in the summer. So it's over 500,000 passengers we're delivering daily. Is an awful lot to manage. So it's very important that we just have very clear, very concise and safe procedures that are simple to understand, simple to digest, and simple to implement. In terms of working together, then I guess is the bigger point, and one that I think most of the room is probably interested in. A lot of the discussion here has been focused on ground handlers and service providers. I think, yes, they were understaffed throughout the year, and especially in some of the big hubs and some other airports as well. Like there was definitely, like the UK in particular was hammered this year, and I think probably as much to do with Brexit, that the staff weren't no longer there when they tried to return to work and return to flying. These staff shortages would result in these massive queues in the airport, and they made for great visuals for Sky News to take photographs of. However, The piece that hasn't been brought up really here today, and I think is one that is a call to action for everyone, is the ANSPs and the delays at air traffic control. That is the hidden queue that was out there. We had, I think, like we grew by 15% on what we did pre-pandemic, roughly in the summer. So we went from delivering 2,400, maybe 2,500 flights daily to 3,100. And close to 20% of our flights daily throughout the summer were delayed due to ATC. And it's really the main reoccurring ANSPs in mainland Europe, such as France, Germany, that are the biggest contributors to this. They are, it takes a very long time for them to recruit staff because of the training protocols. And a byproduct of that is it has delayed the network throughout. So if you think about it, we can focus on ground handlers, and they will eventually get staffed. It's an easier problem to fix, to train a ground handling agent. But what we'll see is ANSPs will continue to delay the network. Like we had 15%, by Eurocontrol, there was 15% less flights in European airspace this summer, roughly, give or take a percent either side, okay, compared to pre-pandemic. The peak weekends in the summer this year had more delay minutes, or the same delay minutes, as that same weekend in 2019. So despite there being 15% less traffic in the sky or on the roads, we still managed for ATC to delay at the same number of flights or minutes. So on a per flight basis, it was through the roof. And you'd have to think that some of that outstanding capacity is going to be filled next year. Some of the long haul carriers will return. I think the likes of EasyJet and other people like that who had to do mass cancellations, or BA, or like, you know, Wizz maybe as well with crew or whoever it is, will eventually get crewed. They'll probably be ready for next year, next summer. So that will return. We'll go back to probably near 2019 levels again this summer, or very, very close, closer than we were this year in totality. And the ANSPs will still be under-resourced and will continue to delay the network. And it's a snowball effect, because the more you get delayed by ATC, the more it affects crew hours, the more it affects the handling agents or the PRM providers or the people on the ground in the airport or security who are trying to plan their limited resource, which we all are aware of, for the day, and it gets knocked out of balance. So if you think you're going to have 5 aircraft on the ground and you're Menzies Aviation in Prague, and you think that there's going to be 5 aircraft landing in at 6 p.m., and it actually turned out, so you have your teams planned for that, but because of the knock-on delays, say on first wave, because of slot delays, if it's, I don't know, German airspace or something that might have affected it, you might have 3 aircraft on the ground. And then later on, when you have 2 teams on, because you thought you were going to have 2 airplanes, you turn out you have 8 or 9 airplanes on the ground to handle. And then that is where we have seen really, really mass disruption in some of the airports. So I think that is a huge call to action. It has to be a focal point and something that we all have to look at for next year, is the resourcing in ASPs, because otherwise we'll continue to run late, and even if you are adequately staffed, everything will run late in your airport, and then you run into curfew breaches, and there seems to be no wiggle room on some of them, along with the staffing shortages.
Thanks very much, Tom. Very important point. There are limits to how much you can optimize if you don't take into account also the NSP part.
Yeah, I think the chessboard has to work for everyone to be able to play.
Right.
You know?
Finally, turning to you, Libor, you have to work together with a lot of airline operators and the ground handlers as well, of course. What do you apply then? Different procedures for everybody, or you urge them to use your procedures? How do you work together practically? How do you make it work when you work together on safety?
Yes, thank you. This is actually a frequently discussed topic because, as the CEO Jiří said, we have got 60 airlines at present at the airport, and we see that the complexity of ground operation is growing very significantly, and we talk here again about the humans because we don't have enough people, and we have to protect those people that we still have on the ground. So this is important. Only the procedures that are simple and understandable by people can be procedures safe. And we do a lot of activities, including the safety bus, to get in touch with the first line apron employees. And we know from them that the simplification of the tasks and procedures is the most wanted thing. Nowadays, every aircraft handling is basically a different set of procedures based not just on the aircraft type, but also on the specifics of aircraft stand and different requirements of an aircraft operator. The human factor gets into the picture here, and we request the people to read, understand, and perform all the tasks correctly. And we think that we are touching the limits of the human performance. That is why we have activities to harmonize the procedure, because well, take an example, and my favorite sentence always is that there are 24 different ways how to place cones around an A320. Can you imagine how demanding is it for the people on the ramp? Because from the airline perspective, it is simple, and I understand it. They have got just one simple picture how to place cones around an aircraft, and they submit the picture to the handling agent. But the problem is that this handling agent receives many simple pictures like this. At the end of the day, it is too much for the people. Also, the airport sometimes complicates the situation in case when the aircraft stands are different in shape, dimensions, different procedures and exceptions. So the best practice for airports here is to simplify the infrastructure, harmonize it. That is why we have a procedure to reconfigure some parts of the apron and make the stands simple and the same in dimensions, and I believe it will help us a lot to make the airport safer and to make the life of the people working on the ramp on the daily basis a little bit easier. And for airlines, I would like to encourage the airlines present here in the room to discuss with us more about this. Because there are new examples how to do it, especially in UK. The London Luton is a pioneer of harmonized airport procedures. They call it the airport GOM. This is usually based on the IATA GOM. And here, a set of procedures, basic procedures for things like choking, coning, or approach of and GSE to the aircraft fuselage, pushbacks, activities in thunderstorms, and so on are described and then agreed with airlines. So if we get inspired and did the same, we drafted the procedures, they are ready, and they are agreed with both two main handlers at the airport. And now the second important step will come to convince as many airlines as possible to go for this harmonized procedure in favor of higher safety. So this is what we try to do.
Okay, thank you very much. And perhaps EASA should consider this about how to put cones around the 320, because from a safety perspective, it cannot be done in 25 different ways. But how to solve that responsibility issue, and so we will look into that in the course of the rulemaking on ground handling. Very interesting. We are running a bit late, gentlemen. I will turn the focus to the last theme, which is smart safety management solutions, a concept which I believe we all can agree upon, but it can also be a bit airy, a bit fluffy, how to implement it. Perhaps we could start by asking you, Javier, taking up the threads from Ryanair before. As a large airport operator, you also have some collaboration with the ANSP in Spain. How do you manage that? Has that been an equally a big bottleneck in Spain? And if so, how have you tried to solve it together with your NSP partner?
Well, navigation service providers are very important for airports because at the end of the day, they are managing the number of customers that come to your airport. So they are important for safety, they are important for punctuality, they are important for everything at the airport. So we have a very good coordination with them at different levels. We have first of all, I would mention we have a commercial relationship with them. We have 3 providers at our airports, at our towers, air traffic tower controls, and we have 3 of them. So we have a contract with each of them, where we establish the KPIs, the reporting system, and the price we are going to pay for their services. Of course, these 3 providers are certified by the national authority, the national or European authority. So that the first relationship we had with a commercial activity. Some years ago, we didn't have that commercial activity, so we improved a lot when you have a relation like that. They were under contract with that. We have operational coordination, of course, because you need to coordinate at the level of the airport, at each airport. They are involved at the operational committee, safety committee, just to assure that everything is working properly. We have another level which is more strategic. As we manage a network, we have a committee at the national level, at top level, where we meet every month to discuss issues like capacity planning, new slots we need, because normally it takes time, so we have to be coordinated in which moment that capacity is going to be in place. Also, we discuss their environmental issues. Every day is becoming a more important problem when we manage an airport. And then we deal with those issues at national level in order to have also a common vision at our 46 airports. And also we have relationship with them at the level of technology and innovation. We consider that there is margin to innovate. And for example, we have a project with them, with several of them, because we intend to, in some way, to put them to compete among them in the project of remote control tower. I think that is very important to control ATC from a different place where the airport is located. And especially this project is very important for AENA because we have 46 airports and many of them are small airports when we can get efficiencies. That's a local level. But when you talk about air navigation and you talk about congestion, you have to talk about Europe because the air navigation service providers at the level of the airport is only a small part of the system. No? The problem we have in Europe, we are still fragmented. Our airspace is fragmented, and if we want to really get improvements, we have to make progress with a single European sky. And now we have Eurocontrol working. They work well, from my view. Network manager is trying to optimize the use of the capacity of the space, not only in tactical way, but also now they are working, for example, for next summer. They are working network manager of Eurocontrol to prepare next summer, trying to coordinate airlines with airports, with ATC, local ATC, but it's not enough. We need the single European sky because we can get important efficiencies. We can improve the use of the limited space, European space capacity, and at the end of the day, is something essential to get the goals of the sustainability goals that we are following by getting more direct routes and reducing reducing the emissions, which is there is margin to improve.
Thank you. Playing the ball a bit, but back to you, Tom. We hear now examples from Spain, how they try to optimize, at least within Spain, and how much can be done at national level, and how much can you, together with airport partners and other, push to solve the problems there, and how much do you need to address at European level?
I think, yeah, we're doing our best to try engage as a carrier with, say, Eurocontrol and the network manager, just to see what is it that can be improved for next year. We do fear that next year will be worse than this year with the increase in capacity, and we don't think that the staffing levels in critical ANSPs will be up to where it needs to be. So that is also, yeah, that is something that we are obviously actively engaged on at the moment. I think there's a lot of efficiencies that could be had in some of the providers. Then I guess separate to that, in terms of our own interaction with partners throughout, we have like obviously a very comprehensive safety management system, much like many of the other organizations here, and we have a very detailed compliance monitoring system, and one of our key points in it is our reporting. So we really, from the top to bottom in our organization, we really empower people and have an open and non-punitive reporting system that is constantly under review, and we have a goal of just continuous improvement. We look for people to not just report on, say, what happened, but what could have happened, and we really want to rely on our experience that we have in 36 years of aviation and such a large sample size of flights with a large operation. I suppose one other point that was mentioned in terms of working with other people and partners, one of the topics has been the regulation in ground operations, which we would welcome and support. We're actively engaged in the rulemaking at the moment. The only thing that we would probably try point towards at the moment is that given a lot of what we're talking about here is a reaction to last year and the congestion within the airports and the scenes that we've seen, the regulation should really avoid becoming overly prescriptive. And I think that's something we have to take into account, that it's not just the big hubs that this should be created for, you know, like the Amsterdams or the Frankfurt Mains or whatever. Like, you know, what might make sense there won't exactly apply to some of our regional airports, which do make up still cumulatively a large section of the traffic within Europe. So it's important that it's not overly prescriptive, but we would be definitely in support of it. I think the only thing is we should look to the experience that's within all of our organizations that we have over the years. There's a wealth of experience there, and that should be the basis for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Irgi, in managing safety, you have expressed before the importance that of communicating safety first. I hear safety culture is an important part of your organization. Now, can you give us a glimpse? I mean, you have responsibilities within the Czech Republic and so on. You're part of a global organization. Is that the same everywhere when you go to a Menzies operator, or how is that enshrined in your organization, both locally and globally, if I may say so?
Really, thank you for the question. It's really interesting. Even though we are a global company, we have the same methodology. It's absolutely not the same in different locations. And I can say that we as a Menzies Aviation, a global player, we are number one in terms of a number of countries we operate. So obviously we have a big, robust, very clever system to manage the safety, to report all the incidents, and also to lessons learned from different stations. We learned quite quickly. And this system is actually really good. It's state-of-the-art system. I'm really impressed by what we have developed. It's developed in-house only for Menzies purposes, and we do not even license it. So it's really great, right? but it's not enough. Yeah? It was mentioned by Libor, it is about human being. And people work differently, company treats them differently in different locations. Even Tom could confirm that our performance is different in different locations. And I think it's about really safety culture, which is something that I believe that is a decisive factor for a company like us to be serious incident-free company, not only for one day, not only for 1 week, not only for 1 month, but actually forever. I believe that this is ambitious. I know I'm aware of this, but it is achievable. It is about the culture, and the question is how to change the culture, how to change the mindset of every single person in the company. So I can share with you few elements that we believe are really key ones. First is that safety must be taken and considered as a priority in the company starting from the top. Yeah? And it really needs to be believed by the people, and it really needs to be meant seriously. So starting from the top, I am personally involved in regular meetings with frontline staff, ensuring and addressing that the safety is our priority number one. And finally, because this is something that we need to do really repeatedly, people are really aware. So that's first, it must be ensured not only by myself, but also by all the leaders, including the shift leaders, and they need to be really convinced. So that's the first. The second is that there needs to be an open environment supporting to report and supporting to discuss any single potential or already problem or incident that actually happened, because only what is spotted could be finally solved and could be finally addressed by some preventive measures that we can implement. So that's the second. Third is always what it helps, and that is having a motivation scheme, which in Czech Republic specifically is actually independent on the success of the company. So basically, we award the people for being safe, even though if our performance won't be as great as budgeted, for example. So people know that even financially, it's actually great to follow the safety. And this is something that you need to, again, ensure the communication every day. And the last one, which I wanted to share, is the most important one, I would say, and that's that we really need to, at all levels, lead by example. We use an expression that providing safely operation is actually the same as we drive in the car, meaning that when you drive in a car, you can actually follow the speed limit. You can go only if it's green. You can you can fasten your seatbelt before you actually go. You can be concentrated on the driving, not to be disrupted by the mobile phones and so on. And if we will change the culture this way, I believe that we can ensure we can achieve the safe operation forever. But we really need to do it. We really need to follow it. And we as leaders need to be an example, not to breach any rules, even though they are in place, and serve as a good example that in Menzies we go only on green. So this is the last and most important point.
Thank you very much, Libor. We heard earlier that you're also trying to promote a safety culture, a just culture in Prague Airport. Now you're going to manage the safety with a lot of partners, and some are apparently very willing. I hear from Menzies. Some may be more hesitant or slow. How do you ensure to get all on board so the safety management actually work in practice?
Yes, as Jiří said, it's a never-ending story, and it is about the communication, and there are many examples what can be done to get together. Leading by example. This is a great topic, Jiří, because this is what I try to do all my life. When I am on the apron and see some FOD, I go there immediately and pick it up, and I look around what people did see me, and if somebody see me, this is good, because I then feel perfect to give a good example. Well, safety reporting is also important, and it is important to establish as many reporting channels as possible. I will not talk about the traditional ones because we are running out of time, but some news to be added. We are very successful with the social networks, and we implemented the WhatsApp channel for safety reporting. This is welcomed, and this is successful because everyone has its phone in the pocket, and it is very easy to take a photo and send it to us, or give a short message and submit to the safety department. But this is still not enough, because we will still have people that are not comfortable with any kind of reporting tool, and they will simply don't do it. So this is why we have got the safety bus presented earlier, and I can discover you the miracle of the safety bus, because it is really interesting. It is a standard co-bus staying somewhere on the apron on an aircraft stand with the doors open, and there are posters that we invite all the ramp staff to come in, and people are coming because they are interested to know what is inside. At the beginning they are a little bit shy, but when they enter, they read all the safety posters about the FOD prevention, or how to deal with the thunderstorms and the jet blast prevention, or prevention damage to the aircraft, and so on and so on. And after 3 or 4 coffees drinked and then some snacks, the people start talking to us, and thanks to that we have got a really good connection to the first line staff, and we try to learn what is happening on a daily basis on the apron, how people work, what is the reality, if it is the same as written, which is usually not. What helps people. We are interested to learn both safety 1 and safety 2 things. So we ask them, please tell us what helps you to do the job correctly, and on the other way around, what are the problems, what aircraft stands are problematic, what aircraft types, and so on. And we get lots of information for our next work in the safety office, and this is the way how we try to improve the safety at the airport. What is our challenge is that the people sometimes rely on others. An example, ramp incident with aircraft damages, with a lot of witnesses, I think maybe 10 witnesses around the aircraft, and no direct safety report. When we investigated why, we found out that all the people present believed that the safety report will be submitted by somebody else from the crowd. So that is why we promote the sentence, do not rely on others, please report it.
Thank you very much. We're running a bit late, but finally we also need the authority perspective of how to manage the airport safety in a holistic way. What tools do you use yourself, and how do you encourage all the teams to work together?
From our perspective, we also very much focus on the safety promotion initiatives. We organize many campaigns, especially in social media, not just directed towards the airports, but also the whole safety culture and the just culture It's important for us. We just completed our annual safety conference, and what was a big concern for us was that as we sit here, we talk about what we call a big aviation or commercial aviation. But from my point of view, this safety culture also starts from the very, very beginning. A lot of people working for the big aviation, they are enthusiasts. They start, from the, small private flying. Now totally the new area will be drones. I will bet that many young people, their first contact with aviation with a toy drone, but it's still, again, it's already a part of the aviation. So one thing is as I said, is the promotion of the safety culture and not being afraid of reporting things. But the other thing that we focus very much is the data, is the access to data. We are going to, we are a bit late, so only as from the beginning of next year we are going to apply ECARS 2, EASA ECARS 2, and provide data. And I encourage everybody who's in the room from different states. I think EASA is a leading example of the way how we can use data. Also the data for safety project, it was mentioned before, because sooner or later we'll have to move into risk-based oversight. So one thing is the culture, so the culture of reporting, but the other thing is using the data and try to figure out, what's the real problem and where is the risk. So we as authority try to do a kind of a comprehensive approach, implementing the ECARS 2, and I think also the EASA role will be very important because EASA can look at the trends from even bigger perspective, the European perspective.
Thank you very much. And while you have been talking, as you can see perhaps on your phones, the audience has posed a lot of questions, and we cannot do them all. So I will try to select some of those who have got more votes from fellow audience. I may only direct the question to some of you because we don't have time for a full round for each question. So please allow me that freedom. There is a question on ramping up during times of recession brings the risk to prioritize production over safety. How can we keep that balance right? And since we have heard several statements from here that stating that safety is #1 priority, I think I will direct the question to you, Piotr, because you will, as an authority, you have an overview of a lot of organizations in your country, some which have a very good safety culture, some with a more dubious one, perhaps. Are the organizations under such financial pressure so suddenly safety comes back in the role?
Well, from my perspective and the experience, I haven't, faced a situation when the, safety was reduced in somehow because of the lack of resources. I mean, there was, I think, most of the people, working in this industry knows that safety is paramount. I mean, the other, actually, the challenge or the problem we have seen is the potential reduction of the operation. So I wouldn't say that we have, a certain risk or problem with safety. The problem we are facing is that some of the organizations say simply we cannot perform it, or we'll have to reduce the number of the operation, and this is the risk for us from the industry, which may have financial impact, operational impact, but there may be operational problems. But in terms of the safety as it is, I mean, I haven't faced the situation of a significant reduction of the safety issues.
Thank you very much. Let me jump to another question, basically asking, after two severe crises, COVID, now the Ukraine war, indebted organizations, what does it take to build in more resilience into the aviation system? I don't. Everybody can join, but I will ask the panel who would like to give a response to that. Can we build more resilience into the system, or is it a question about money? Javier?
Well, at the end, it's a question of money, but we should be more resilient. We should be more resilient, and we have talked about social sustainability. We have talked about the need to have more coordination, just for the crisis, not only for the day-to-day. So at the end, that would make the system more resilient, but at the end also, the cost is higher for that, and all the agents in the system have to be willing to pay, to pay for that.
So earning money is also part or a means to get more resilient.
Perhaps the costs, the unitary costs for the future are higher. We need to have that resilient system.
Right. Any other views? Then I'll jump to the next question. Stating that it's very important to invest in the human factor, in the human being. Some of you have also stated that. How do we continue to do that? It costs money. It costs. We cannot rely only on innovations. It will help us. It won't solve everything. That's a statement. How can we ensure to keep investing in the human factor? Anybody? I think you have mentioned it, many of you. Ryanair, you do.
Yeah, no.
In the airport, you do in the ground handling.
I suppose it's like anything. It's just to continue investing in the human factor. It's just your people is obviously still such a major part of your of any organization here. I think everyone's felt the effects. I don't need to tell anyone about how critical it is to hold on to staff when you can. It is a difficult market out there at the moment. I think things have changed very rapidly to a year ago or 2 years ago in terms of market rates for pay and different things and conditions. I think things will change quite rapidly again. I think a recession seems like it's on its way. So I think some of the inflation figures people are talking about at the moment, I think are utterly unsustainable. You can't have 10 to 20% inflationary increases year on year for very long before something gives. I think we'll see a very different market in a couple of years. But I think this year has certainly highlighted the fact that letting go of large chunks of staff can be, maybe it's a decision you'd have to make, but it is something that will mean that it will slow you down massively coming back, for sure.
Thank you very much, and I will jump to the very last question, because otherwise we don't have time for that, and our time is in fact up. Asking about the ground handling procedures and responsibilities, also in the light that we are facing a coming ground handling regulation. Now, some of you have mentioned that it would be extremely nice to have harmonized procedures for coning or whatever other examples we have. Still, formally, the responsibility is today with the airline, also the oversight of the ground handler and so on. The question is, should we move some of these fences a bit in order to harmonize the system and also for the benefit of safety? That's basically what the question addresses. We may have different views on this. Operator, Ryanair, yes, what do you think?
I think it's certainly the example of the many cone procedures in one airport would help that one airport, and it might seem like a very logical decision. However, if you're the airline, you are responsible for your aircraft in that flight, ultimately. Be it if you use an agency or not, you are still responsible for the safety of that flight. So if you have a procedure that you use throughout your network, and that's your procedure and your policy, then you should be allowed to use it, of course. I think so. It may be convenient to an airport that would like to have cones laid out in one manner or not. But I think as an airline, it's you who is responsible for that aircraft touch wood, but against obviously, a fatal incident. So it is important that if you have a policy or procedure that you see as safe based on your experiences and it's in accordance with the regulator, then that's what your right is to do so.
Thanks. Very short, Libo.
I just add that this question is very relevant in case of common procedures. Also, the airport will be partly responsible for the procedure, and that is why the detailed safety assessment is part of the story, done by the airport, definitely.
Yoji, any comments?
Well, I'm afraid that the responsibility will be still on the airline, which basically means on us as a handling company. So I would not expect that shift of responsibility, and I fully understand what was said by Tom, actually, because he said quite clearly that for them it's actually extremely important to standardize the processes around Europe. So we will see. We support all the activities that, of course, can improve the safety. So we will be actively participating even in this activity for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all in the panel for coming with very interesting and intriguing statements, going quite deep in some of the areas which I think is of broad concern to the audience. Also, thanks a lot to the audience for posing relevant questions. Apologies for not being able to answer all of them, but at least now we have them in written format and we can take them up and reflect upon them from EASA side. Thanks a lot, and I hope you have enjoyed this session. Thanks again to the panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a break there. We need to start again at 4:15, so please be in your seats at 4:15 so we can start on time, because we've got quite a tight schedule. Coffee and other drinks are immediately outside. Thank you.